Not every hero of World War II died in battle. Some vanished without witnesses, without records, without answers. Trapped aboard a sinking submarine, Captain John P. Cromwell carried a secret so dangerous that survival was no longer an option. What happened next would be buried for more than 50 years. This incredible true story is about John Philip Cromwell. Born in Henry, Illinois, on September 11, 1901. He entered the United States Naval Academy in 1920, graduated 4 years later, and began a career that would lead him into the silent service. After initial assignments aboard battleships, he attended submarine school and spent the next 2 decades working his way through the ranks. By late 1943, Cromwell had been promoted to captain. He was no longer just a submarine commander. He had become something far more valuable and far more dangerous to possess than anyone realized. He had been briefed on Operation Galvanic, the upcoming invasion of the Gilbert Islands, including Tarawa and Macon. The assault was scheduled to commence on November 20th, 1943, supported by powerful carrier striking forces. Cromwell knew the fleet movements, the tactical plans, the timing of the offensive. He also knew about Ultra, the Allies' most closely guarded secret, containing crucial intelligence. American cryptologists had broken the principal Japanese naval code, and Cromwell had been read into this intelligence. He knew how the information was obtained. He knew its value. And he knew what would happen if the Japanese ever discovered it. In early November, Cromwell boarded the USS Sculpin for what would be her 9th war patrol. The submarine departed Pearl Harbor on November 5th, refueled at Johnston Island 2 days later, and then set course for her assigned patrol station. The patrol station was northeast of Truk, one of Japan's most formidable strongholds in the Central Pacific. Sculpin was commanded by Lieutenant Commander Fred Conaway, a capable officer embarking on his first war patrol as captain. Cromwell went aboard as the prospective commander of a submarine wolf pack, a coordinated attack group that would include Sculpin and other vessels. It was Cromwell's first war patrol as well, though his role was strategic. If the tactical situation warranted, he would coordinate the submarines into a hunting pack. Until then, he remained aboard Sculpin. They reached their station on November 16th. The crew faced a long, empty stretch of sea, with nothing but the horizon ahead. The submarine followed its everyday patrol routine, meaning the crew remained alert, constantly scanned the waters, ready for any threat that might appear. Then, on the night of November 18th, the radar operator reported contact. A large, high-speed convoy. The kind of target every submariner dreamed of, a large, valuable convoy, exposed in the open sea. Conaway made his decision quickly. The submarine moved forward on the surface, its engines turning to full power to catch up with the convoy. The plan was simple and familiar. Get ahead of the target, dive before dawn, and wait for the convoy to come to you. As dawn broke on November 19th, Sculpin slipped beneath the waves and moved quietly toward her target. Conaway raised the periscope for a final approach, but someone on one of the Japanese escorts saw it. A thin line cut through the water, barely visible but unmistakable, and the alarm went up. The convoy changed course. Conway had no choice. He took Sculpin deep and let the ships pass overhead. The low rumble of their propellers shook the submarine's hull. Then it faded. The convoy moved on. But Conway was not finished. He brought Sculpin back to the surface and began another pursuit in broad daylight. A risky move, but one that still carried a chance, however slim, of success. What he did not know was that the Japanese destroyer Yamagumo had deliberately lagged behind the convoy, waiting for exactly this kind of maneuver. When they surfaced, the Japanese destroyer was right there, looming above, ready to engage. Conway slammed the submarine into a crash dive. She plunged sharply, her bow angling downward as the depth gauge spun wildly. Above them, the Japanese crew acted fast. They'd done this before. They knew exactly what to do. The explosions came in rapid succession, massive concussions that battered the submarine's hull, rattling her frames violently. Suddenly, shockwaves swept through every compartment, and the lights began to flicker. Everyone on board grabbed onto anything they could. And somewhere inside the boat, unnoticed amid the chaos, the depth gauge had been damaged. The submarine went deep and stayed down. Hours passed in tense silence. The crew kept calm, breathing slowly, carefully conserving every bit of air. Above them, Yamagumo waited patiently, every crew member watching, hoping the submarine would surface again. The submarine's crew remained as silent as possible, breathing slowly and conserving air. Every sound felt dangerous, every movement carefully controlled. The exact reason remains unknown. Perhaps there was still a chance to strike, but Conway gave the order to surface again. The diving officer began bringing the boat up, watching the depth gauge carefully. 125 feet. The needle held steady. Everything seemed to be working normally. The dials spun as usual, but the gauge was lying. Sculpin kept rising. The diving officer, trusting his instruments, did not realize what was happening until it was too late. The submarine broke the surface in full view of Yamagumo, which was still patrolling the area. Conway shouted the order to crash dive again. The vents opened. Sculpin's bow tipped down. It was too late. Yamagumo had started moving. There was no turning back. 18 depth charges fell in a pattern around the submarine. The explosions were devastating. Sculpin shuddered and twisted as violent shockwaves tore through her hull, splitting welds and bursting pipes. Emergency lights flickered, casting a faint glow. They noticed seawater spraying from a dozen leaks as well. The diving officer struggled to maintain control, but the boat was taking on water faster than the pumps could handle. Sculpin was forced to run her engines at high speed just to maintain depth. The propellers thrashed. The motors screamed. The Japanese destroyer came around for another strike, like a predator sensing blood, and more depth charges rained down. This time, the damage was catastrophic, with leaks springing up everywhere and water pouring in. The hull groaned under the pressure. Most of the systems failed, and the air turned thick and foul. The submarine was dying. Conway quickly called his officers together, but the problem was very clear. Diving wasn't an option. They could not outrun the destroyer. If they stayed submerged, they would sink uncontrollably. There was only one option left. A desperate, almost suicidal choice. They would surface and fight. The order went out. Men scrambled to their stations, while the gun crews checked and prepared their weapons. There was no other choice. The submarine had to rise toward the surface, angling upward through the dark water into the harsh reality. Sculpin broke through. Water washed over the decks, pouring from the ballast tanks. The crew scrambled up through the hatches and manned the deck guns. And Yamagumo was already turning toward them. It was never a fair fight. The Japanese destroyer had speed, armor, and superior firepower. But the crew of Sculpin had desperation on their side, and they weren't about to surrender. The destroyer immediately opened fire, hitting the submarine's gun deck with deadly precision. The Japanese showed no mercy, and the entire bridge watch team was eliminated instantly. Conaway, his executive officer, his gunnery officer, all gone in a single terrible moment. Shrapnel tore across the deck, destroying the gun crews before they could even return fire. Below, the senior surviving officer, a reserve lieutenant, understood that the fight was over. There was no point in further bloodshed, and knowing the cost of delay, he gave the order to abandon ship. Men poured out of the hatches, some wounded, some burned, all desperate to escape before the submarine took them down. The scuttling charges were set. Sculpin was going to sink, and she would not become a prize for the Japanese. And then there was Captain John Cromwell, wounded, but fully aware of what was happening. He sat down amid the chaos. Water rose around him, as the sounds of destruction echoed through the compartments. He knew what was happening on deck, that the crew was abandoning ship, and that he could not join them. The calculation was simple and terrible. If he abandoned ship, the Japanese would capture him. He was a high-ranking officer. If they captured him, they would interrogate him, with drugs and with torture. He wasn't naive enough to believe he could resist forever. Sooner or later, the pressure would break anyone. And if he broke, if he revealed what he knew about the planned invasion and about Ultra, the consequences would be catastrophic. The invasion could fail. The enemy would change their codes. Thousands of Americans might die because of what he revealed. At that point, he made his choice. He chose to stay behind. He refused to leave. The last remaining men shouted for him to come, warning him as the water level continued to rise. But he refused. He was calm. There was no hesitation. He was resolute. He had served his country his entire life, and now he would serve it one last time, in the only way left to him. He would take the secrets with him, every code, every plan. All would die with him. The submarine sank deeper. The stern lifted as the bow plunged straight down into the darkness. Cromwell never changed his mind and remained inside, wounded but fully aware of what his choice meant. 11 other men stayed with him, some already gone, some trapped or too badly wounded to escape. Water surged around the submarine, her angle growing steeper as the bow plunged into the dark. With a great rushing sound, the submarine slipped beneath the surface and plunged into the dark unknown. 42 members of Sculpin's crew survived in the water. 3 officers and 39 enlisted men. The Japanese pulled them from the sea, bruised and bloodied, clinging to what little strength they had left. The survivors were taken to Truk and interrogated for 10 days. They told the Japanese nothing of value. They did not know what Cromwell knew, so they couldn't reveal any details about the upcoming planned invasion. The prisoners were divided into separate groups, then transported to Japan aboard 2 escort carriers, their fate sealed far from home. They arrived safely in early December and spent the rest of the war working in the Ashio copper mines. 21 of the surviving soldiers were placed aboard the Japanese aircraft carrier Kuyo. On the evening of December 3, 1943, 240 miles southeast of Yokosuka, the USS Sailfish torpedoed and sank Kuyo. Ironically, ultra-intelligence worked in their favor. The Allies knew more than the enemy suspected. Unfortunately, during the torpedo attack, only one of the Sculpin prisoners aboard survived. Back in Pearl Harbor, the command staff waited for confirmation that the wolf pack had been formed. On November 29th, they radioed Sculpin with orders for Cromwell to activate the coordinated attack group. There was no response. The message was repeated, but still nothing came back. The submarine Sculpin was overdue. By then, she was presumed lost. It was not until after the war, when the survivors returned and told their stories, that the full truth emerged. The details of Sculpin's final battle came from both Japanese records and the testimonies of the men who had been pulled from the sea. And they spoke of Captain Cromwell, the man who had stayed behind. Vice Admiral Charles Lockwood, Commander Submarine Force Pacific, nominated Cromwell for the Medal of Honor. The nomination was approved. Cromwell was posthumously awarded the Medal of Honor, recognizing his sacrifice. The medal was presented posthumously to Cromwell's widow after the war ended, a recognition of a sacrifice that had no witnesses. A sacrifice that embodied the deepest commitment to duty and country, beyond fear, beyond survival. In 1954, the destroyer escort USS Cromwell was commissioned in his honor. Cromwell Hall, the Navy's Submarine Learning Center in Groton, Connecticut, also bears his name. They are monuments to a man who understood that some secrets were worth more than a single life, even his own. A man who, in the depths of a sinking submarine, made the loneliest and most final choice a warrior can make. Thank you for watching and spending these moments with us. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more remarkable World War II stories.